You mentioned 5G, and there certainly is a perception out there that we'll hold off on managed Wi-Fi because we're seeing entrants saying 5G is going to save the day. There's going to be just, you order a hotspot, put it into your property, and that'll get you the bandwidth that you want. It sounds like that might not be the case. And before we go to you, because we know what you're going to say, you had said in our earlier conversations, you had kind of done a deep dive into this and come to your own conclusion that 5G is probably not going to be the solution you're looking for. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and what you found as you dove into it on your own?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that know a lot about Wi-Fi and 5G in this room. One of the problems with 5G, we know it's a huge build out. It's a tower every 1,000 feet. We have properties that are, Denver metro area that still don't have good 4G coverage. So, I struggle to see when 5G is really going to get there. And then we're primarily suburban, so 5G is even more problematic. But even more with that, I think the issues that we're seeing is 5G at some point is going to get congested. And there's, I think it's Verizon and T-Mobile had a big gain right now, but they're selling it as a loss leader. If you live in the city, it's not a horrible service, but it's still not as fast as what we're providing.
We don't have it in my city yet, Manhattan, Kansas. We don't have 5G at all.
No comments about Kansas. And we, long term, we still feel like wired is better. Wired is better. I love all the smart stuff and it's all wireless, but that wired connection in your unit is always going to be better. We've got issues coming through windows yet. Like you said, going through concrete. I just think that 5G is going to be a complementary service. It's great. Your phones work on our Wi-Fi. That's really what the customer cares about. And I just don't see it as being an improvement over what we're doing. I've not seen my internet bill go down in 20 years or my phone bill, and I don't expect to see that with 5G.
Yeah, I was over in the Connect building yesterday before the open house and was on the mezzanine level, and that construction is all concrete, big thick layers of concrete. When I was deep in there, I was getting 1 bar of 5G and it was not working all that well. So I can see that's a problem. Now your answer is not that 5G is not going to save the day, because you guys are investing in 5G as well. So tell us a little bit about, reconcile that for us.
Yeah, it all about use case and how you're going to use it, right? So Dish is launching the O-RAN, or the cloud native, which is the true version of 5G network that has huge commercial implications. But there's kind of two main positions on it, and a lot of people, you'll hear the term FWA, or fixed wireless access, and that's someone who replaces their wired or their fiber home internet, their broadband, with this wireless service as their new home internet. And the kind of positions are, and Steve said it best, is it a complement or is it a replacement? The general position of Dish is that it is complementary and will be for the foreseeable future. And there's a few reasons for that. And AT&T has come out and been pretty vocal about having that same stance, is very complementary. They see some long-term challenges if we start shifting all these households into fixed wireless access. Whereas, Steve's point, the other two main providers out there are marketing it pretty heavily, and they're trying to bring in a lot of short-term revenue. But I won't pretend that I'm a network engineer and what I'm speaking to, but I do have some good sourced points to make about some of the challenges with fixed wireless access running over a 5G or LTE network. And the big one Steve touched on is bandwidth constraints. An interesting article I was looking at in light reading, they said that someone who has fiber internet at home, and then they use their cell phone for wireless access, and then if they switch to fixed wireless access, that they use 40 times the bandwidth on that wireless network, because of now they're powering everything all through a wireless network. And then if you look at that from the perspective of multifamily, so if you have a 250 unit building and then maybe you have several of them in the area, next thing you know, you have about 1,000 homes that were previously on a broadband network, now going off one tower or maybe two towers. If you do the math, 40 times the bandwidth times 1,000, suddenly there's huge bandwidth constraints that they're going to run into. They haven't hit it yet because they don't have a lot of customers doing that, but as those come on board, that's going to be a problem, and that's actually something AT&T has communicated that they're trying to limit that right now and be more proactive. So you've got, the bandwidth side of it.
Spectrum issues too.
Yes,
So
spectrum deployment.
there's only so much spectrum out there, and they think they can steal more, but it's not widely
It's not
available,
guaranteed
and
at this
it's-
point. They have
Correct.
to negotiate and buy that spectrum. That 40 times number, I'm assuming it's just that it's a reflection of the type of internet we consume when we're on the go, when we're in the car, or we're at the store versus when we get home. There's a lot more video content. We're streaming. We're on TikTok, Instagram, those type of things, and that's what represents that number. That right now, most of that traffic is going over our Wi-Fi and on the fixed internet at our homes.
Right, and you think about, the people that have video doorbells now and other types of camera systems. These are all hooked up to broadband networks. And all these smart devices in their home, along with streaming and their general consumption, if you just shift all that to a wireless network suddenly and then multiply it, it's a massive change in what the throughput is. And I would say the other thing is there are, one of the great things about property-wide managed Wi-Fi is we heat map everything and we understand coverage in building because there's a lot of materials that lower the gain and the throughput. And you're going to run into a lot of that with 5G. A single family home is one thing, a large MDU is another, as far as penetration into that building and proximity to the tower and what floor you're on and a lot of other things. So there's, that penetration challenges. The other one is smart home tech. So a lot of the smart devices today are built on Wi-Fi standard, and they're not on a 5G standard.
They don't even have the capability to pick up 5G. They don't have that technology built into them.
So they couldn't connect. So if you now have a smart refrigerator that's installed in an apartment and they wanted to switch to 5G, that won't be able to connect until whatever the life cycle is when you want to replace an in-unit refrigerator.
I would say for a homeowner, that's not insurmountable because you would have your router hooked up to 5G and then they would connect to the router. Mm-hmm. But from a managed Wi-Fi perspective at a community, that's just not practical in my mind.
Yeah.
To have like the leak sensors, the door locks, the things that the company wants to have in each of these units.
Yeah, we need that separate network.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then the last point is, as much as we're excited about 5G and everything it's going to change and how it's going to change our lives, is keep in mind that's not the only advancing technology. So Wi-Fi's advancing, and we switched now from Wi-Fi 5 to Wi-Fi 6. And one of the biggest things about Wi-Fi 6 is it manages multiple devices. So as we get into smart homes, I think at the keynote they said the average, as far as single-family homes goes, has 16 devices connected. And Wi-Fi 5 didn't deal with that as well, and you lost throughput and speed. But Wi-Fi 6 can manage large number of connections to a single access point much better. And then there's going to be a Wi-Fi 6E coming out, a Wi-Fi 7. So, 5G isn't the only advancement. Wi-Fi keeps getting better and better as we move forward.
Okay, so assuming there's individuals in here that are interested, we kind of have two camps. We're going to have those that have existing units that are wondering, okay, how can I go back and retrofit this? Versus new construction seems a little bit easier. You're just starting from scratch. Now, you've done at least one retrofit or a couple retrofits?
Yeah, we did one retrofit. It was not with Dish. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a very painful experience. We had about a 300-unit community in Iowa. It was older and, pulling the fiber, had to punch a few holes in drywall. But it took working with our maintenance team, I think about a month with all the coordination. So it wasn't a painful experience.
And from your viewpoint, you guys will help build out the cost for either option, for new or for retrofit.
Right. We can do any of the financial models, and we can do any of the construction. Now, the interesting thing is a lot of the talk in the multifamily segment, we've been jokingly now calling older properties vintage properties. It's a little more fun way to categorize them.
Then brownfield.
Yeah, it's a better name. And so when we look at, vintage properties, I mean, the thing to keep in mind is internet's now the fourth utility. It's not one of those nice to haves, it's need to have. And it's not just having internet, it's having broadband speed internet.
Yep.
And that's what people need. And so it's something that eventually, if you have a vintage property in your portfolio, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to need to upgrade it. If you have very old cabling that has limited capacity and can't deliver the speeds and the throughput, if you have older equipment in there, eventually you're going to need to do that upgrade. So the sooner you do it, the better, for a lot of different reasons, but retention of residents, attraction of new residents, and providing that modern experience that they're looking for.
Sure.